Hello, my name is Kirk Hansen with Splunk. This video is part of a video series where we will provide detail on how to configure Pivotal, Cloud Foundry, and Splunk for the purposes of ingesting data from Pivotal Cloud Foundry into Splunk for multiple use cases. We will also go through how to use the Splunk app for PCF, which has several use cases for this data. In this video in this series, I will be walking you through how to import the Splunk PCF Firehose nozzle. For this demo, I will be using the PCF's Ops Manager GUI, but realize this could be done a number of ways, such as through an API integration. The process is fairly simple. There are 3 steps. First, download the nozzle. Second, configure it, and finally deploy the nozzle. All very straightforward. What you will need before we get started is your Splunk URL with a HEC listening port, PCF Apps Manager URL, a PCF username, and a PCF password. Now, to get to it, I've already downloaded the nozzle, but what I'm going to do is show you very quickly that down here is a link to all the products. And very simply, all we have to do is open that link and enter Splunk, and you'll be navigated directly to the right source. So what I'm going to do first is import this product, and off screen I'm actually selecting the nozzle that you just saw, the .pivotal extension. It's going to import it into the side tile here, sidebar here, where it's going to be sort of, let's say, a staging area that's going to allow us to then select what we want to draw into the installation dashboard. Oh, well, we're done. So that's great. So what we're going to do is go ahead and use this little plus icon. It's going to draw it over here. And when that's configured, when that's finished, you'll notice that we have a little bit of configuration left to do before we actually install or deploy. And the first thing you're going to notice that there's a missing stem cell once this refreshes. And so then missing stem cell pops up. What we're going to do is I've already actually downloaded and pre-staged the correct stem cell download, but it's worth mentioning you want to get with your PCF administrator to download the right one. In this case, I know that we're running on a certain platform, so I'm going to go ahead and install that right stem cell or that correct stem cell. And once this finishes, I'll return. Okay, so that finished, it's uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and apply that stem cell to this product, the Splunk Firehose nozzle for PCF. While that's doing that, the next step for us is actually going to be to return to the installation dashboard. We will click on the tile, and there's remaining configuration that we're going to input. Some Splunk configuration and some Pivotal configuration. And you can see that it's orange. It indicates to us that we actually have some remaining config before we're allowed to deploy. As you can also see that it's actually grayed out over here, so it's not going to let us to apply those changes or deploy until we complete the config. So the other thing to remember is that your AZ and network assignments, you definitely want to get with your Pivotal Cloud Foundry administrator to make sure that you're entering the right things. Do not use the inputs in these fields as examples. Just realize that these are areas that you're going to have to fill out before you're able to deploy. For the Splunk settings, if you are a Splunk administrator, this is where you can put everything in that I mentioned earlier. The Splunk endpoint with the HEC port. I am just going to be filling this in for fun. Excuse me, PCF index and 7.1.1. All right, so my Splunk settings are complete. Next is the Cloud Foundry settings. And this is again a fake URL. It's just more for the purposes of demoing and just trying to give you an idea of what you're going to need to put into each configuration, let's say area or tier. The API endpoint, the username, and a password. As far as leaving the event types checked, I would definitely recommend that you leave these checked just to get an idea of the data that's being generated. There's some very powerful information that's coming through these event types. And it's not a required area, but it's worth pointing out. The advanced section here is definitely something in the additional fields is definitely something we found customers actually doing something like foundation and doing and the actual value from whence this came, the hard coding the actual foundation name. So you'd have an actual name that would be relevant. But in this particular case, I'm not going to actually fill that in. I'm just drawing that out as additional place. You can throw some config to, let's say, enhance the data stream or the event stream. So I am going to go ahead and deploy. There's a number of ways, since we are ready to deploy, there's a number of ways to deploy. Again, this is another case where I would recommend that you contact your system or your PCF administrator and then let them make the determination of how you're going to deploy. What I'm doing here is actually a shortcut deployment, or it's a way for us to actually only deploy this one thing. I'm sure there's many different ways, as mentioned earlier. This is just one way of doing it. I would certainly let the PCF administrator make that call. And once this actually gets to the next screen, it's actually another pause for us during the video where I will actually come back after you take a pause and after it's finished deploying and conclude this video. And there we are. So as you'll see at the next point, most of this or all of this will be completed and we will then conclude the video. I'll be back. Okay, so that's finished. Now as you can see, we've got everything completed. I'm going to return to installation dashboard and just conclude this recording. So what we've done is we've installed, deployed, choose your terminology, the Splunk Firehose nozzle for PCF. We've configured it and then of course deployed it, as I said. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments below or send us an email. Thank you.